Good morning, everybody. How are we all today? Welcome to another session with Ms. Robinson with biology. Today we'll be looking at the lymphatic system. The last class we had looked at blood groups, so now we're going to be looking at the lymphatic system. Okay, so let's carry on today. So like I said, we're going to be looking at the lymphatic system, okay? So what is the lymphatic system? It's basically an open transport system that works in conjunction with the circulatory system, okay? The lymphatic vessels collect tissue fluid, kill foreign organisms, and return to the blood where it joins the plasma of the circulatory system. Okay, the lymphatic system also acts as a secondary circulatory system, and it is especially adapted to deal with infections. So the lymphatic system, although it's a secondary circulatory system, it has no pump like the circulatory system. However, several factors cause lymph, which is the fluid associated with the lymphatic system. There are several factors that cause it to continue flowing. So one is muscle movement. So the lymph vessels are compressed by the muscles, and this compression moves the lymphs around. You have valves that prevent the backflow of the lymph due to compressions. You also have breathing movements. So these breathing movements force lymph back into the bloodstream at the base of the neck into the subclavian vein. Number 4, and pressure from the influx of lymph around the lymph vessels cause the lymph to move. So that compression from the lymph vessels, again, from the pressure of the actual lymph moving, causes the lymph to move. So approximately 10% of tissue fluid passes in lymph capillaries instead of returning back to the blood. This forms what we call lymph. So as lymph travels in one direction through the lymph vessel, it passes through lymph nodes where it is filtered and unwanted substances are removed. The filtering is done by phagocytes, which, as we know, is a type of white blood cell. So lymph nodes are also responsible for making another type of white blood cell called the lymphocytes and antibodies. So what are the functions of this system? So the lymphatic system has 3 main functions, okay? Number 1, removal of interstitial fluid. That's the fluid found in the intercellular spaces from the tissues. It absorbs and transports fat and fatty acids, and it also produces and transports immune cells such as lymphocytes and phagocytes. So let's look at what makes up the lymphatic system. So it consists of lymphoid organs, which are spread throughout the body. These include your bone marrow, your thymus, lymphatic vessels, lymph nodes, spleens, adenoids, and your tonsils. And here is a picture showing you exactly where you would find each of these different lymphoid organs within your body. And how you know that the tonsils itself is a lymph node or lymph vessel or lymph gland. Normally when you tell the doctor that you're feeling sick or you have the flu or he feels like you have a throat infection, the first place they like to normally touch is right up here. Because if it's swollen, it's an indication that an infection is going on or your white blood cells is trying to kill off a poison. So there's 3 types of fluid in the lymphatic system. You have blood, tissue fluid, and lymph. So let's look at the differences between them. Okay, so I need you to take note of this diagram that I have here. We normally see it in the BGCSE examinations where you have to label it or you have to, based on the diagram, state what passes what through where, how it works exactly. So please pay attention to this diagram as well as its labeling. And of course, I will have it placed in the resource folder, this PowerPoint, so that you will not have to freak yourself out. So the relationship between the fluids. Let's look at blood. So blood transports materials such as food and hormones to the tissues. This we already know. We know that the liquid nature of blood and blood vessels help with the movement of the blood around the body. The blood capillaries, which are the tiniest vessels, leak sometimes. So plasma and white blood cells are able to squeeze through the capillaries and form a liquid known as tissue fluid. And that is the 10% that we talked about in the previous slide. So why doesn't red blood cells pass through the capillaries? Because they are too large. Let's look at tissue fluid. Tissue fluid is in the immediate all the cells in the body. It bathes the cells and supplies them with the requirements that they need. So let's look at our diagram. So the blood has now passed through the artery and is now branched off into the capillaries. Now remember, it said 10% of the plasma squeezes through these capillaries and forms what? Tissue fluid. So the tissue fluid here is what's bathing or soaking the blood cells. They're taking a nice jacuzzi bath in their now formed tissue fluid. And within the tissue fluid, this is where they get their nutrients, their oxygen, any little energy provide out the functions of our body. So this is the lymphatic system here on the side of the capillaries, ready to drain out any excess or any waste formed from the body cells. And you see you have the plasma force out to the capillaries to become tissue fluid, and how the tissue fluid returns to the capillaries and back into the regular blood flow and out of the veins. So what is another relationship? We have regular fluid, eh? So fluid is constantly flowing in and out of the plasma, but some of it enters sets of vessels that we call lymph vessels. These vessels have very thin walls and valves to carry lymph. The fluid in the lymph vessels is now called lymph. So we've now reached our third fluid called lymph. So we went through blood, we went through tissue fluid and how it's formed, and now we are now at lymph. So let's look at our diagram that I said that we need to pay close attention to. So as we know, in the circulatory system, the artery normally carries oxygenated blood. Blood that's rich in nutrients, blood that has everything that body cells will need. So we see blood coming in at the arterial end. Comes in. Now it reaches a rest stop. It gives off its oxygen to the blood cells, to the body cells. And in return, via diffusion of oxygen into their cells, the carbon dioxide that has been produced from previous times is now diffused out of the body cells and back into the bloodstream. It also drops off glucose. Glucose in this case would be in the form of food or needed for energy with the mitochondria to create extra energy for the blood cells to carry out its daily duties. So it drops off glucose. And in return, because it's another waste product that's provided or made by the body cells, it drops off, the body cells let out urea, and your blood takes that urea along and goes out to the venous end, which just means that there is a vein. Okay? And once this is the body cells bathing in the tissue fluid, right? This is the tissue fluid here. And notice what we said. fluid is constantly flowing in and out of the plasma. That's this yellowish region here. Okay, but some of it enters a separate set of vessels called the lymph vessel. And this green portion is what we call the lymph vessels. And how does the lymph vessel collect this fluid? These vessels have thin walls and valves to carry lymph. And that fluid, once it reaches into the green portion, is what we call lymph. Let's take some questions before we move on. Are there any questions? Okay, no. Okay, so we're now at lymph. So lymph consists of glands and lymphatic nodes to help the body with immunity. Sorry, that should be the lymphatic system, sorry. So the lymph nodes contain large numbers of white blood cells, many which are, of course, lymphocytes, which multiply during infection and make antibodies. And remember, we were talking about antibodies when we were looking at the components of blood. These antibodies are made by lymphocytes to help the body remember a particular infection. So if it comes along again, we are able to fight it off without any excess resistance. So let's go again. The red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets are major cell types found in blood plasma. Unlike plasma, only some white blood cells can be found in tissue fluid. The protein, oxygen, and glucose concentration in plasma is higher than in tissue fluid. So that right there, you have two differences between the plasma and the tissue fluid. Okay? Here's another set now. The lymph vessels pass to lymph glands that act as filters. The glands contain many white blood cells that deal with any harmful organisms that is drained by the lymph. So, numerous of phagocytes and lymphocytes occur, and these numbers increase during infections, which we already know. This is why lymph glands become swollen in serious infections, where they become involved in increased activity. The lymph fluid only passes in one direction due to the valves in the larger vessels. The lymph circulation is helped by contractions of nearby skeletal muscles and breathing movements, which we already said. In the villi of the small intestine, lymph vessels assist with digestion. The lacteal is a lymphatic capillary that absorbs dietary fats. And we should have already known this from our digestive system in grade 9 or in grade 10 if some of us did this BGCSE overall. So here's a table that I created for you to help you understand the differences between the three fluids even more. Please excuse the word lymphocytes, that should have been lymph. So let's look at the first component. Cells. How are cells different in the plasma, tissue fluid, and lymph? Okay, in terms of cells, the plasma found in the blood has red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. Tissue fluid only has phagocytes, and the lymph clearly has lymphocytes. So what happened in terms of protein? Proteins found in the plasma and blood would be hormones and plasma proteins. In the tissue fluid, you will find some hormones and proteins that are secreted by cells. And in terms of the lymph, you have some proteins, but it's definitely fewer than what you would find in the blood. Okay? Fats. There are some fats found in the plasma. There's no fats found in the tissue fluid. And of course, as we said, there would be more fats found in the lymph than in the blood, because of course it's absorbed in the lacteals, which we said is a lymphatic capillary. So glucose amino amino acids and oxygens, you will find a lot of that in plasma, but it'll be less in tissue fluid because these are already absorbed by the body cells. And of course, you will find less of that in the lymph fluid itself. So carbon dioxide will be less in the plasma. It'll be more in tissue fluid because this is produced and released by the cells, which we said are shown, and it'll be definitely more in the lymph fluid. And that's the end of the presentation. Are there any questions before we go on? So you're asking if the lymphatic system only transports the blood and gives it its nutrients and oxygen. No, it does not. The lymphatic system is a system that deals with immunity against certain diseases and infections. It also deals with creating the lymphocytes that create the antibodies. So in essence, it's a system that helps in terms of keeping our body well, okay? All right, so let's go over some key points before we move on, okay? Okay, so first point, are you still seeing me? The first point we need to remember is what is the lymphatic system? The lymphatic system in this case is a system with open transportation that allows lymph and white blood cells to flow, but this is in conjunction with the circulatory system. Okay, so we know that the lymphatic vessels collect tissue fluids, they kill organisms, and they return to the blood where it joins the plasma of the circulatory system. Okay, and to answer that question again, the lymphatic system acts as a secondary circulatory system and is adapted to deal with infections. So no, it does not carry nutrients and oxygen to our body cells, okay? So we said that it's an open transport system that works in conjunction with the circulatory system. The lymphatic vessels, sorry, we already said that. So we know that the lymph moves by muscle movements, by valves, by breathing movements, and by pressure caused or building up behind the lymph. We know that only 10% of tissue fluid passes in the lymph capillaries, and lymph only travels in one direction. So we know that the filtering of this lymph is done by phagocytes, and the lymphocytes that are made in this lymphatic system are the ones that create the antibodies that we need. The functions, we know that it removes interstitial fluid, and that's fluid around the cells. We know that it absorbs and transports fat and fatty acids, and we know that it transports and produces immunity cells, such as the lymphocytes and the phagocytes. We have different things found inside the system that help us fight off these infections. We have the bone marrow that creates the phagocytes, we have the thymus, we have the lymphatic vessels, we have the lymph nodes, we have the spleen, adenoids, and our tonsils. And we should always remember the tonsils because that's where the doctor normally presses to see if it's swollen. Okay? Three types of tissues, the three types of fluids found in the lymphatic system: blood, tissue fluid, and lymph. Okay, and we know that blood transports food and hormones to the tissues. We know that the liquid nature of blood helps with the movement of blood around the body. Okay, we know that the tiniest blood vessels, which are the capillaries, leak sometimes, and that's how the white blood cells and the plasma are able to squeeze through and form tissue fluid. And that leakage of plasma and white blood cells is what make up the 10% that we call tissue fluid. So we know that these blood cells bathe themselves or soak up all the nutrients in this tissue fluid, and in return, getting nutrients from the tissue fluid, they in turn excrete waste products such as carbon dioxide and urea, which the cells do not need. Okay, and once the fluid separates into the lymph vessels and are carried up into that vessels, that particular liquid is what we call the lymph liquid or the lymph fluid. Okay? Always remember that. Because they will ask you in exam, what are the differences between the two fluids, or what are the differences between the three fluids? And we know that there are differences because why? The plasma does not have phagocytes. The plasma only has red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. The tissue fluid only has the phagocytes, which is one type of white blood cell, and the lymph fluid only has lymphocytes, which is another type of cell. We know that the lymph fluid would have more fats in it because, as we said, the lymphatic system absorbs fat in the lacteals, which are also found in the small intestine of the digestive system. The tissue fluid has no fats, and the plasma has a little bit of fats, okay? We know that plasma has glucose, amino acids, and oxygen, clearly because it has to carry it to the body cells. The tissue fluid will have less of this glucose and amino acid and oxygen because why? The body cells that are soaking in this tissue fluid have now sucked it up because they need it for their daily activities. And the lymph fluid has very, very little. So carbon dioxide is less in the plasma because, as we know, it is already carrying that oxygen. So the carbon dioxide concentration will be very, very low. And we know that the tissue fluid will have more of this because, of course, this is where these body cells are, and they're excreting this waste product of carbon dioxide and urea. And the lymph fluid, of course, the lymph fluid would have a lot of carbon dioxide. So that's just a recap of what we did today. Okay? Let me check some more questions. Urea is basically the product that the liver creates. So urea, let me correct myself. Urea is the product that the kidney creates, and that urea consists of bile created by the liver. So as a result, that urea basically is the product that when mixed with water, we create urine. It's just a nitrogenous waste created, okay? As a result of the excess protein broken down in our bodies. If you have you mean like behind the ear right here, you have, doctors can use that as a test as well because your lymphatic system, it branches all about. Let me show you the picture just for extra clarification. So we can have a full understanding that the lymphatic system is just not hair. It's a network of vessels. Let me show you.
Welcome to Grade 2 Math with Mrs. Farrington. That's me. And today we're going to look at ordering numbers. Now, what do I mean by ordering numbers? Is this like when we go to Bamboo Shack and we order a thigh snack or a conch snack? No. Is it like when your mom just ordered some cinnamon buns because that's the thing now? No. The type of ordering we're going to be talking about is a bit different than those ones. So let me give you an example. I have these set of spoons, and as you can see, these are measuring spoons used for baking. Now I have these, and we can clearly see that these are different sizes. We can see that this is the largest one, and then these are smaller, and this is the smallest one. So what ordering means is I can put these, like this is the biggest, and then this is the next size, then this comes next, and this is the smallest. I just arranged these measuring spoons in order from the biggest to the smallest. I can even switch it up and put them in order from the smallest to the biggest. And if I wanted to check it, they all fit right neatly into each other. So when I talk about ordering, that's what I'm talking about. So we're going to see that word, order. It's the way we fix the things. And another word for order is arrange. I just arranged them in order. So I just fixed them. I just put them in a particular way. And another word that we're going to see is least. Least. Smallest. Smallest. And then the opposite of least is greatest or the biggest. So we put these in order. Well, let me give you another example. You may see these a lot in math, these blocks. So I have these blocks. I have yellow blocks, I have brown, I have white, I have green, and I have them in particular amounts. So I have here these blocks. Now, my orange, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks of orange. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 yellow. 1, 2, 3 white. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 brown. So I have different numbers of blocks. So I want to arrange them in order or order them from least to greatest. I remember least is the smallest. So when I look, I can just look at these. So when I look at these, I know that, okay, well, this looks like this is the smallest. And I could just go by size, put them all side by side. And that can assist me. So I could go here. I've just put them in order from least to greatest. So the white, green, orange, then brown, and then yellow. Now I can put a number to them. The white has 1, 2, 3. Green has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is greater than 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Orange has 6. 6 is greater than 5. And then brown has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. 8 is greater or more than 6. And then the yellow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yellow has 11, and 11 is greater or bigger than 8. In fact, 11 is greater than all of them. So I would have just arranged these or put them in order from the smallest to the biggest, or from the least to the greatest. Okay. Do you hear the rooster in the backyard? It's very early in the morning. So now, we're going to do this worksheet together. And we're going to put some numbers in order. So first thing, look at our instructions. It says, write each set of numbers in order from least to greatest. So I'm going to order them from least, which means I'm going from the smallest. Notice least is written in smallest and greatest is written large. That is to help you to remember what least and greatest mean. So in the first one, this number 2 10s 7 ones is 27. 1 10 9 ones 19. 3 10s 3 ones 31. 2 10s 4 ones 24. So I have 27, 19, 31, 24. And I have to put these in order from least, from the smallest to the greatest. So I'm looking at my numbers. Okay. So I'm going to put an X here. If you said 19, you're correct. 19 is the smallest. So after 19 comes 20. There's no 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Oh, there is 24. So after 19, the next number in this series here would be 24. I'm going to make sure I mark an X on that to remember that I will not use that again. Okay, so I have two more numbers left. So after 24, would it be 31 or 27? You're correct. 27. And the last number is always the easiest. So the number that's the largest or the greatest is 31. So these numbers in order are 19, 24, 27, and 31. Okay, let's try number 2. So now for number 2, I have 7 tens, 7 ones, which is 77. 6 tens, 8 ones, 68. 8 tens, 9 ones, 89. 7 tens, 0 ones, 70. Which one is least or smallest? So I look at the tens. I have 7 tens, 6 tens, 8 tens. Well, 6 tens is less than 7 tens, so 68 would be my smallest. And then after 68, there are no more numbers in the 60s. So I can look at the 70s. I have two 70s, 7 tens, 0 1, 7 tens, 7 ones. So 70 or 7 tens, 0 ones comes next. And then 77. And last number that's left is 89. So that's arranging numbers from least to greatest, from the smallest to the biggest. Now let's practice these ones down here. I'm leaving these two for you to try on your own as a challenge. So here we have, it says write each set of numbers in order from greatest to least. It's very important to read your instructions because instructions tell you what you have to do per section. So this time we're doing it in reverse order. We're going from the biggest number or the greatest number to the least or the smallest. So I have 4 tens, 2 ones, 42, 3 tens, 5 ones, 35, 3 tens, 7 ones, 37, 5 tens, 2 ones, 52. This time I'm looking for the greatest or the biggest number first. So I look here, 42, 35, 37. The biggest number is 52. And just like I did at the top, I'm going to mark an X when I use the number so I do not get confused and use them again. So after 52, I'm looking for the next biggest number, 42. 42. And then after 42, I have to choose between 35 and 37. Which one is greatest? 37 is greater than 35. And because 35 is the only one left, I have that. So my numbers in order from greatest to least are 52, 42, 37, 35. So what I did was I counted backwards. Okay, so we're going to skip this one. You're going to try this on your own. Now let's do number 7. I have 100, 5 tens, 5 ones, 155. Then I have 300s, 0 tens, 6 ones, 306. Here I have 100, 4 tens, 8 ones, 148. And here I have 2 hundreds, 3 tens, and 6 ones, 236. So, which number is the biggest or greatest? So I look, 100, 300, 100, 200. 306 is greater than all of them. And then next I have 236. So I have to choose between 155 and 148. Well, they both are hundreds. 5 tens and 4 tens. 5 tens is greater than 4 tens. So 155. And here, the smallest number is 148. So these numbers in order from greatest to least, or from the biggest to the smallest, are 306, 236, 155, 148. So I want you to try this